Alright, so let's talk about Japanese weasel linguistics. I got this comment, and this comment from someone who just really likes weasels and ferrets and members of the Mustieldae, I don't know how to say that, family. And I think it's charming. I think a request like this is charming, so let's go into it. Let's talk about it. So the person asked to talk about ferrets, which are Shiro itachi, but I'm going to talk about just itachi, which are weasels. Now, ferrets are not weasels, obviously, but they are a member of the same family. And yes, weasels are indigenous to Japan. They look like this, which is cute. And here's a video of them being cute. That was cute. Indeed, the scientific name for the Japanese weasel involves itachi, which comes from itachi in Japanese. But I'm not a biologist, I don't know about this stuff very well, I am a linguist, so I looked up the language parts of it. And weasels are indeed indigenous to China as well. In fact, they seem to have weaseled, themselves throughout the world, and so there is a, Chinese character for weasel, which looks like this. Now, this is what's called a keisei moji in Japanese, which means it involves semantic and phonetic information. If you're not familiar, this is the most common type of character. Characters obviously came from pictographs. They are not pictographs, though. Please do not call them pictographs. I will cry. But the most common ones, like tree, etc., did come from images. The most prevalent, though, and the ones that exist the most, are actually these keisei moji, where in one part of the kanji represents sound and the other part meaning. In this case, the meaning part here is the kanji for nezumi, or rat, mouse. Yes, weasels are not mice, they're not even rodents, but you can't really blame whoever invented this character sometime between 6 or 3000 BC for not knowing that he whose pre-literate ancestors had a contemporary understanding of what a rodent is cast the first stone. You've all played Civilization, you know you have to develop writing before you develop advanced biology. Anyway, the kanji looks difficult, but it's actually supposed to look like a mouse. That front part there, the top bit, that's like the teeth going, and then you have the little legs, and then the tail. So, I actually kind of see it. Compared to Torah or Zol, I think it still retains more of the image. Then the part there on the right, that is the onyomi, or the sound that is giving us yu. You can see this in words like yurai in Japanese. I can't find a single Japanese word that uses the onyomi of this character, but it exists, so I guess someone has used it sometime in history. While itachi is obviously generally used in katakana, indeed it can also be the family name if you write it like this. It does appear in a few of the words. For instance, what we call a tiger shark in English is actually a weasel shark in Japanese. It's up to you to decide if this is more weasel-like or tiger-like in your opinion. And a mongoose is a neko itachi. No, mongooses aren't cats or weasels, but, hey, again, let's not nitpick the choices of people who were born thousands of years before us. This mouse radical is not commonly used. It is used for a bunch of kanji, but they're not like ones that you'd see, although potentially you might see it here where you have another keisei moji, and this is read as go, but also read as either momonga or musasabi when combined with the actual kanji for rat, and these refer to types of flying squirrels. Again, I can't find anyone using this go reading in real Japanese, but if I was making a video about flying squirrels, it would be cool because I could call it technically gengo gaku. There's also kama itachi, which is a Japanese yokai based on a phenomenon of going up in the mountains and due to cold winds, etc., getting cuts you can't explain. That is basically a weasel with blades. Again, not something you're likely to see day-to-day Japan, but it is influential enough that it is said to serve as the source for at least 2 Pokemon. Interestingly then, itachi is also used in a number of Japanese phrases. Now, I asked my wife, who's Japanese, if she's heard of all these. Actually, I think in terms of relevance, it's backwards. I asked the Japanese person, who happens to be my wife, if she'd heard of any of these, and she'd only heard of one. Now, she's just one person, but the most common one, the one that seems to be used most prevalently, is itachi gokko. This refers literally to a game that apparently was popular in the Edo period, where children would pinch the back of each other's hands and say, itachi gokko neko gokko, or playing as a weasel, playing as a cat, and the game would just go like that. Like, that was the entire game. Doesn't sound like super fun, but again, if I was bored in the Edo period, maybe I would enjoy it. Here's a less violent example of somebody doing it now. Because this game has no purpose and no end, however, it has become metaphorically used to refer to a back and forth wherein nothing progresses. In some cases, this is often translated in English as a cat and mouse game, but that's only kind of accurate. Like in a post like this where they're talking about a crime where the criminals and the police kind of just keep avoiding each other, then it works. But in posts like this one, or in a post like this one, you can see that they're not talking about a back and forth, they're just talking about something that does not progress in any way. And so the cat and mouse game translation isn't really accurate. Something that's in Itachi Gokko is just something where people keep doing things, but nothing actually progresses in a meaningful way. Also then is the phrase itachi no michi or itachi no michikiri. This refers to like cutting off contact with a person or never going somewhere again. Looking at uses on this online, I've mainly found people talking about just the phrase itself, but there was at least one use here talking about a customer to some kind of like hostess bar, etc. that never showed up again. So it is out there, although my wife didn't know it and it does seem to be a bit rare. I wouldn't use it in casual conversation expecting to be understood. I could be wrong. It is a kind of interesting phrase, and based on the idea, again, I don't know if it's true, that weasels do not walk the same path twice. Then finally, there is itachi no saigope, and this is literally the final fart of the weasel, which is kind of fun. And interestingly, if you check on Wikipedia, it says that this refers to, like, the last words or efforts of a unpopular person, and this links to a Japan Times article, but I can't actually find any Japanese sources. When I look in dictionaries, etc., it just says, like, a desperate measure, a sort of back against the wall, last resort sort of measure. So this may be an error. And if you're watching this video and you're a Wikipedia editor, please consider changing it and citing me. I am an academic and it would be my absolute dream to be cited on Wikipedia. But yeah, generally speaking, this phrase, the final fart of the weasel, is based on the idea that when trying to escape as a last-ditch method, weasels will release some unpleasant scents from their rear end. So you can see examples used here where it does have that kind of my last resort. Not something you want to do, but something you have to do for the situation. So there you go. I never thought I'd be making a video on Japanese weasel language, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed the research that kind of went into it.